Aye.
By the way, everybody, the meeting will be recorded tonight. Approval of the minutes of February 1st, 2018.
I do have something that I think we need to correct, which would be, I think the minutes were all really good. It was just the part where, right where the motion was made, to take no action on this item. And there was a second by Star, but then we just said the ayes were 4, nays 1, and motion passed. Should we not be stating who, each one of those were? Because I do believe you said that you abstained. Is that correct? So he didn't vote. And to say I was the one that said the name. So if we could just get those corrected.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, discussion of the future location of communication center and Fort Action.
Well, coming out of last week's meeting, there was 2 action items that we had. One was to reevaluate again what we believe the cost might be. And then the second one was to reevaluate the 2080 agreement and see what the 2080 may look like. I did send out 2 documents to the board on Friday, again, to give all of you time to look it over, ask any questions. I know, Mike, you did respond today, but I'm sure we'll cover some of that tonight. But just to go through it so the public has the information, Jeff is going to go through the cost. I do have printouts if anybody needs it of that document. Sure. Everybody needs to have it. He'll cover the cost, and I can talk about the 2080, so we're taking care of tonight.
Sergeant Bart's, Travis Bart's back here, did some research on the cost of moving the communication center. If we were to go ahead and move dispatch into hopefully the future jail location. And if you see the very top there, feedback from Winnebago County. Winnebago County just currently did build a new facility. And if you see the cost there, they're between $15,000 and $18,000. Now they have spent a total of $25,000 for their move. That included some new equipment. And we may not need any new equipment when we move. We'll go through a thing here down later. I think Craig Habercorn has said that we probably should get some new servers coming up here in the future. And that's quite a cost, of course, right there. But that's going to be something if the dispatch center stays or goes. It's going to still be a cost that's going to be coming down the road. But you look not quite halfway down. County estimate at this time, there were some changes that Travis did make today. Move of cables and wiring, computers, hardware, consoles, and servers. Rough estimate of $10,500. This estimate we received from Electronic Engineering, Emergitech, for moving all equipment. So these are all ballpark figures, of course. It's not specific. They pretty much know what we have is the companies that do work at the dispatch center now. So they do know what our dispatch center is all about, and it's pretty close to what it would be. Labor on wiring in new location, about $2,500. Again, that's Craig Habercorn there, Computronics. Estimate for wiring and assistance with server setup. Computronics would be assisting Emergitech and Electronic Engineering, who would be performing most of the work. Now the very next line, that was the one we got a call on today. It's the 9 trunk lines. They did first give us an estimate of $2,000, and Travis thought, well, that kind of seems kind of low. But they were dead set, $2,000. Well, they came back today and said that they messed up. It's gonna be around $15,000 to $20,000 to move those trunk lines. So, but you're looking at an overall cost there of 30,500, $33,000 right there. And Travis just took a ballpark figure around $50,000 on a high end, what it would be to cost. So that is just some of the numbers that we had and brought into this discussion, of course, people were looking at. And I still think even with it going up to $20,000, the $50,000 is probably a little bit on the high side, but just to be safe, I think it's a good ballpark figure.
There's always gonna be hidden costs in there somewhere that.
Definitely.
And I'll be talking a little bit later here too about some of the costs that we already have factored in with the law enforcement center too, so we want to so.
And with this board right now, I guess I do want to ask John, those servers that they were talking about, they were talking about a 5-year life.
Yes.
They say ours is 6 or 7.
Yeah, we're right on the end tail.
Okay, because Craig did make mention of that he's kind of worried about that. If we have 2 servers go down, we're, our communication will be down.
He's talking about going to a virtual server,
Okay.
which would be about 30 or 40,000.
That was roughly, I know I spoke to him on Friday, and that was roughly what he was saying too. I think he had concerns, from his perspective, I think just the wiring in the department right now is a concern. It is, static electricity when you have servers, that are either sitting, on the floor, different things that he had concerns with, and so he was sharing that with me.
I have one question, Sheriff or for Travis there. On the tower, you don't have a cost down there for using fiber options and microwave.
Did you get anything back on that, or just
The
they bounce it off?
The microwave part was included in electronic engineering's cost.
That's in the 10,500.
Yes, if we had to put up that. As far as the fiber optics, that I don't know yet. That's, we have that at the courthouse, how they would connect over here. It could be one or the other. Like Winnebago County said, they use fiber optics and the microwave. That way, in case the optics get cut, you have the microwave as a backup system. They have no issues with either one.
Do you have any questions?
No,
Off the
just-
Travis is here.
Just that one, John.
Right on tape.
And the $20,000 for the 9 trunk lines, the $2,000 was for the trunk lines only. They came back today and said $20,000, that includes moving the 911 servers and hardware that they have inside the dispatch center as well.
I know you guys have talked about the trunk lines before, and when Travis got that figure, he thought
Yeah.
that didn't sound right. but-
No, because we got 2 other telcos that we would need to move to on, Omnitel and Windstream. Seems like there's
Omnitel has trunk lines, they have 4 of them, but they do not run them. They're all run through CenturyLink. They said so.
through the CenturyLink.
They wouldn't have any say, that would be CenturyLink. And they're not actually gonna move the trunk lines. They would just create new ones at the new location, get everything wired up, and then all they have to do is flip a switch to reroute everything from here to there. That's a lot easier and better than actually trying to move stuff.
Now, I guess the question is on that, and CenturyLink's pretty synonymous with this. Right now, all of our trunks are staying here. That's what they're saying. They're not saying because, CenturyLink would, they might get sneaky and turn around like how they tried to do with us before, was where we'd have to start paying them more money for something. That's why we had all of our trunks coming right into the thing. Just wanted to make sure that they're not trying to do that. I mean, they tried to do it before. That was just a question.
And the other thing as a side note too that we added on here was, we know that there's unknowns, that we don't know what else you have. And so we wanted to add that in there that, business and residential alarms, your cameras for City Hall, and the Parkview Apartments, tornado warning system, we recognize that. So again, we know it's not all inclusive, but at least, we started just to see what we could, pull together for estimates.
And that's why when I asked the question, I wasn't wanting, to lock anyone into, hey, this dollar amount. It was more of I wanted to be more of an in-depth look into what all is involved, and so you can get more of a clear picture of what all is going to be involved, and then a ballpark, hey, well, how's this figure in? And at no point was I saying, hey, I want to nail it down to the penny. There's no way I could anticipate that, or expect that from anyone.
Right.
3 to 5 years out possibly too, you're looking,
Yeah.
even look at.
So would the dispatch center from county continue to do the alarms and the cameras?
I think that's something that we would certainly have to talk about, as we proceed, with how that even, and again, coming into the 2080 considerations that we're gonna talk through, there's still a lot of unknowns
But wouldn't we want to sort out things like that
for today.
before we decide to do something with ongoing, that's effective services?
Did you say cameras and alarms, Keith? Is that what you
Yeah,
said?
we've got cameras and alarms, and we do things like animal control dispatches, things like that through the dispatch center.
I think, personally, I think the services would remain the same all with, they're just possibly moving across the river. You're still gonna be able to dispatch for every alarm, because they dispatch us for every alarm out in the county. I don't see why they wouldn't be able to do that. And watching the cameras as a dispatcher and around the city of Charles City, I don't see any problem with that myself either. So I don't think the job description so much would change. It would be the same, basically the same thing. You want to give the public the same service
Yeah.
they're already
absolutely.
providing.
That would be my biggest concern, is that we would cripple any of the community, whether it's
Right.
Charles City, Rudd, Rockford, the county, or anybody, that we're giving the same service.
Absolutely.
I mean, because right now we have a program, you probably remember, it's the Are You OK program. We're able to call anybody, whether they be elderly or disabled or anything else, to see how they're doing.
And I think
And if they don't
that's-
answer, right.
That's a great service.
So that's something, it's not done through the dispatch center, but the dispatch center is involved to obviously dispatch an officer out. So, that's a service that we would definitely, not want to give up as a community overall. Not just Charles City, but as a Floyd County community.
So again, I would say, Keith, those are all the services, that we need to be looked at, but, we're not wanting to diminish the service they provide. Any other questions before I go into 2080? Okay, good. All right, so again, I do have other copies. If anybody wants some of those. So when we looked at the possible considerations, we just want to restate again that it's premature at this time to know what the Communications Joint Agreement 2080 might look like, and there is time, since we're 2+ years out, to take, to fully look at that and make sure that we've got it developed the way we want. As the Law Enforcement Center project evolves, the Communications Board can make recommendations for changes to those governing bodies. Section 10 of the agreement gives the City Council and the Board of Supervisors authority to amend the existing agreement. Section 9 allows either party to adopt a resolution requesting dissolution of the agreement also. So legal counsel, again, for both of us would need to be engaged, absolutely, for the advice on how to proceed. What it will look like, we just listed a few potential ideas, and again, these are just potential ideas. Number one, keep to city and the county, so we'd have 2 people still represented on this board from the city, 2 from the county, 1 at large, the same as the current existing agreement, but amend possibly number 5, the operations reference to Charles City Chief of Police, just change it to county, because again, we still haven't figured out where the dispatch may fall under, but at least if we could say just county. Number 6, financing with respect to city, submitting an annual budget to the joint board, change that again to county, and all references to the city holding funds removed. Number 7, accounting with respect to city, submitting quarterly reports, just change that to the county. Number 2 is another possibility, amend or create a new agreement to include more voting members. And again, we're talking about others that actually are utilizing, you know, the services coming out of this communications center. And then maybe include not just North Springs and Rockford Fire District Association members, ambulance, et cetera, and then reference county for holding the funds, reports, and budgets, et cetera, just like the city is currently doing today. Possibly 3 is create an agreement for communications to be managed by the Emergency Management Commission, the EMC, which includes all city mayors, all designees, the sheriff, and board of supervisor. Funds would fall under emergency management budget. And then 4 is to create an agreement with the Emergency Management Center for communications to be managed a separate board, such as number 1 or number 2 already mentioned. And then we just said, should membership change, which is under section 3, we have talked about that, you know, just consider more voting members. The sheriff, CCPD, North Springs, Rockford, like we've already mentioned. I know that sometimes if you get to the point where you've got too many voting members, then it can also be a problem also. So we just want to throw that out there, that it certainly could change, but I think that's where we just need to caution.
And I think the more complete representation, I mean, this would definitely be a completely different structure, completely different management structure, that you wouldn't need necessarily the structure it is as it sits, because you've got an owner and a manager, and so those two are coming together to work with this one, whereas I think, you know, and I've heard from other communities that they would like to have a bigger stake in it, but like I said, you don't want to have a 30-person panel.
Right.
You know,
Right.
you get a lot more than just me talking.
Yeah. And then, you know, what I did is just reiterate, I know on the sheets that you have, who the current membership is. And then the other point that we talked about was how would dispatch operate if moved to a new law enforcement center. That is potential offices to oversee the operations of dispatch at the county could fall again, like we mentioned, under the sheriff's department or emergency management. And it's not necessary or appropriate to make that decision at this time, but again, I think that's still our thoughts that we've had, that it could fall under either one. It is the intention that all dispatchers be offered to leave the city position and become employees of the county. Should any decide not to, causing vacancies, applications for employment would be posted and offered to fill those positions. As for pay and benefits, I know I had asked City Administrator Steve Deers to go ahead and send me, you know, what you have today, so that I have, you know, an idea, and we've shared that information. But at this time, the county does not intend to reduce pay to any current dispatchers, and subsequent wages and benefits would likely be based on county benefits unless the dispatchers decide to form a union or a bargaining unit in an attempt for something different, you know, and that's certainly still a possibility. The county has transitioned employees before, so we just want you to know this is not new news for us. We have done this before from other government entities to the county. In 2005, the Floyd County Memorial Hospital asked the county to take over public health / community nursing, and that transition went very smoothly. As employees of the hospital, they were paid out accrued benefits, vacation, etc. as of June 30th of 2005, and although July 1st of 2005 was the hire date at the county, the benefit date was the employee's hire date at the hospital. So if an employee was hired on February 9th of 1999 at the hospital, that date, not July 1st of 2005, was the benefit date, and the county used for calculating vacation. So again, we just want to make sure that this is not new, you know, business for us, and there certainly is a way, I know, that we can make this very comparable.
And employee consideration was a big argument I kept making, is I really want to make sure that dispatch was given a fair credit for their say, even though there wasn't a lot spoken on their behalf, that I want to make sure they were fully considered in this operation.
So again, and just, we currently are the employer of record for other agencies also, and, you know, we listed who they are. So again, I think that just goes back to, you know, ideas, and that was one of the action items that we had. So I would ask, is there any questions on that? If not, these are just my notes, so I don't forget So it wasn't anything that I'm handing out, it was just my thoughts to make sure that I'm not missing anything. So what we wanted to do is, I do know that the last meeting that we had a document that was put together, you know, by Hugh Anderson, Charles City Police Chief, and also Steve Deers as the city administrator. And we wanted to, we didn't really talk about it last week, but I did want to go back and make sure that we're addressing, you know, some of the concerns that you had shared, because we owe you that. So I'm going to somewhat go through here, and I'll just share, you know, comments that you had made, and then refer to, you know, what we believe, you know, is information to share back to all of you. The first one was, you had mentioned cost is the foremost consideration in this issue, and what we look at is safety risk. So I just want to bring that up. That's something that, you know, we're looking more at just the safety, the continued service. What can we do to continue providing that? So it is about the safety of our citizens.
And I guess just to clarify that, sort of reading mine out of context, cost wasn't the issue on the dispatch center, cost was the issue in moving it. We feel obviously that the safety right now is paramount with where it is.
I would expect that.
So,
All right. Jail is an enormous expense. It's worth stacking more costs for the public on top of the jail cost, and I understand that. The county is currently funding the communication center with a countywide general fund levy. The city does have some in-kind costs, and we recognize that from Chief Anderson's administration of the personnel. The cost of the square footage and soft costs are already, and that's why I wanted to bring that up again, they're already part of our cost of the project. And I'll go into a little bit more detail in a moment about what's included right now in those costs for square footage. We do not have any hard numbers, I know, on the total cost to move the many facets of the dispatch center, is what you had mentioned. We have general estimates on some of the factors, but have not touched many others. There are many unknowns, and again, I hopefully that we've, you know, shared some information. We realize that there is other unknowns, so we recognize that. We do know that the cost to relocate certain communications need 911 equipment, but depending on the life expectancy of some of the equipment, some equipment may be purchased new. I think you had mentioned that, Jeff. We don't know if it's all new. Some of it may be existing. By that time, what will have to be actually be installed will have to be looked at. There are some funds available from E911 that could be used to relocate certain equipment. The cost of moving other equipment may be just a budgetary expense. The other thing, the cost of the tower remains a looming expense, which has not been addressed at this point, and that was something else that you had mentioned. There is discussion on leaving it at the present location, but one reason quoted for moving the dispatch from present location is the possibility of City Hall moving in the future. It just said if this happens, then we have the tower to deal with at that point. The discussion has been to lease fiber, run the radio traffic through the internet. Does this put us at risk? Valid point, understand. And the comments that we want to come back with is at some point the tower may need to be relocated, whether it be with a law enforcement center project or just literally what happens to City Hall in the future. You know, we're not looking at it right now. We're trying to find other ways that we can accommodate, be it moving the dispatch center without having to physically move the tower, but I think that's still a looming issue if something, again, happens even in the future with City Hall. City has had numerous conversations and consider of remodeling and relocating City Hall, just another point I wanted to make, and I'll talk a little bit more about that again later. You had mentioned the 911 system works in tandem with the dispatch center, and the system involves many phone companies and their hard leans against from City Hall, 9 trunk lines. I think you need the lines. The state ICN would have to be moved. These would have to be rerouted, as well as the equipment physically moved off-site. The comments that we would make there is that rerouting and moving equipment would need to be a budget expense, and we recognize that. The state ICN, though, on the other hand, comes to the courthouse now and is used for judicial and driver's license purposes, so we already have that. If the dispatch moves and Kathy stays as PD secretary, that would be an added expense for all. And we just want to remind everybody, Kathy has served, restating, she served as E911 administrator well for nearly 7 years. Is that right, Kathy? Where is she?
Yes.
Yes, okay, all right. The project is likely, again, 2 to 3 years out, you know, which gives us, I think, enough time to consider, you know, what might be the potential of moving to county or staying with the city. Both entities will need to take that into consideration, whether they, receive respective budgets to determine if positions will be full-time or other duties assigned to part-time. So again, those are just additional considerations at that time. The current dispatch center you had mentioned, model runs smoothly and cost effectively, and concerns brought forward by all agencies are addressed which are within dispatch purview. We've been able to cost effectively operate the department for the last 50 years, and during this time we have proactively sought out ways to improve the dispatch center through technology and partnerships with all involved. You said we, the city, and the CCBPD have had experience in running the communication center as well as implementing many programs to improve record keeping and communications for about the last 50 years. The dispatch center currently offers many tangent services to many different agencies and cities without cost. That might have been one that you were just talking about
That
too.
is one of
Okay,
them,
there
right,
you go.
many.
All right. So again, our response would be the intent of the county is to engage the current dispatchers in planning the needs for the dispatch area. If it goes to the new law enforcement center, we would absolutely encourage, involvement so that if and when that happens, we would be getting, the expertise and the knowledge from all of you that, and including Charles City Police Department. Who knows dispatch better than John and current staff? The new facility offers an opportunity to improve and enhance ever-changing technology. The expectations are to continue to foster those relationships with employees, vendors, private public sector agencies who use those services today. The communications and E900 boards and any other partners who are key to providing those dispatch services. So the county does not dispute. It's a good thing I brought water. The county does not dispute that the Communications Board has engaged Chief Anderson to operate an efficient dispatch center. The county takes no position that we could run the center for less, and I want to make sure that we are not saying that we could. I've never heard anybody, at least that I've been around, ever saying that that's what we're looking at.
That's how the discussion started about 6 years ago.
Okay, so that was before me.
That's where that keeps coming up, that's
All
why
right.
it's important to keep reiterating that that's not the position, that's helpful.
Okay, good.
So it did not start with you.
And I'll bring that, I know, and I will bring that up again, okay,
We're
if we
pretty
need to.
frugal.
Okay. So, you had said at this time, Chief Anderson, Steve Deere City, don't see how moving and reorganizing the dispatch center under the county will add benefit. And so here is where I just want to go back and kind of, again, this was done before me. The joint facility study conducted by FEH identified a fair and unbiased study of current conditions of existing buildings. And that study provides an architectural review of City Hall, including the roof, the masonry, doors, window, ceiling, interior walls, floor, stairs, and exterior of the building. There's compliance issues that they had noted with fire code, ADA, and structural condition, and a mechanical electrical system review with an associated cost to remedy all of that was $621,500. So the study also identified a space need of 3,800 square feet at a cost of $800,000. Again, I did not make this up. This was all part of the study that was done several years ago. So to our knowledge, I don't know whether you have fixed any of those issues. Like what we're trying to do right now with our project is to recognize that we know some of the areas within our current courthouse that does need improvements, and that's why we're trying to address them as part of the renovation costs of the project. Per the report, the state standards of the square footage also is under the state standards where it's at. I think we're at 322 square feet. And currently, the state standard is at 350, which, and when I talk about what our design plan is for the dispatcher, the square footage right now, we've accounted for the 350. So what we have right now for the project costs, what's included, and I just thought it'd be a good idea to share it with all of you, So right now, it's a dispatch area that includes 3 workstations, that's 350 square feet. There's a dispatch supervisor's office, that's 120 square feet. There's radio equipment / computer server area, that's 150 square feet. A break room, kitchenette, 1 to 4 top table, which is 150 square feet, and a toilet area, which is 50 square feet. So I thought I'd go ahead and just share that with you. Again, these have been in our conceptual designs from day one, but I just thought with a little bit more detail, I know we've talked about the square footage, but I thought it'd be a good time to go ahead and share that with you. There's also the soft costs that are included. Again, that would be if there's just, equipment, furniture, all of that. In September of 2016 flood, delays were evident in the delivering of information between dispatch and City Hall and the EOC at the courthouse. So again, I've shared that before. I think this is a key opportunity to have the emergency management, the EOC and dispatch at the same physical location. That would be in itself a huge benefit for best opportunities to communicate, deliver information, especially if it's a catastrophic event, which we hope never happens. So it was stated the city isn't sure what direction they will be taking with City Hall. Again, we talked about this. In 2016, the city and county again engaged with Prohaska to look at that as a joint effort. The city did make that decision to bow out, and it was financial. I know we've talked about this many times, just really restating what we've already said. In April of 2017, though, the city council voted not to pursue joining with that. And the city council right now, I know, is exploring options for City Hall, whether it's renovating the existing building, adding to the existing building, relocating to 500 North Grand. I mean, I've talked to other members of the city council. This is still one of the top priorities, and so I want to make sure that that is stated, that that's what I'm hearing. It still is one of the top priorities being looked at. And yet I hear that the building is still, it's just confusing to me, I guess, when I hear that it's not, and yet we're hearing that it is. I just want to state that. And then most recently, we were looking at the city council minutes from January 18th. The proceedings put a hold on $20,000 for an increased security at the front desk in the business office due to discussions about renovating. So so it doesn't sound like it's on the back burner if there is already discussions about backing off security because they want to see what's going to happen to the renovation of the building. So, there was a comment, is the county considering billing cities for dispatch services? I know that was brought up the last time. So, I want to restate. The county has no intention of billing cities for dispatch. At one meeting, a survey of how dispatch services are funded across the state was provided. This was simply a response of how it is being done across the state. That does not mean that we're looking to do it. At another meeting, reference was made to a county supervisor providing a city council member with a news article regarding a county charging cities for dispatch services. Again, that was just nothing more than just, it was an FYI, just so, again.
And that's what I passed along as well, is that's how it was stated to me as well, is this had nothing to do with, hey, this is how we're proceeding, just say, hey, here's how other places do it, just this isn't what we're looking at doing, but
No.
that's why I reiterated that as well, and clarified, is that wasn't the intent, that's not how I took the intent either, so, it was harmless.
All right. It's been talked about, will dispatchers be required to be jailers? And I know Sheriff Crooks has talked about that many times. We had down Delbert Longley, the state jail inspector does not recommend that dispatchers be certified as jailers. Although some counties such as Chickasaw do cross-train certify for this, it is not the intention to have them perform jail duties in Floyd County. However, the Floyd County is considering having jailers be possible backup for the dispatchers if needed, and that's for intermediate situations like breaks for meals and so on and so forth. So that's really what we were talking about. Again, who would dispatchers report to? We've already talked about that. That's yet to be determined, but some of the ideas could either fall under the sheriff, could be emergency management. And there is some, if there is some ideas that maybe emergency management may be be the best, because then it allows us some other opportunity for our members. If the Board of Supervisors ultimately make a decision, why would the Communications Board make a recommendation? So the point I want to make here is that we recognize the important role of the Joint Communications Board to adopt rules and regulations for the general operations of this communications system. If the Board of Supervisors understanding that since the county general fund is funding dispatch services, which it is today, the decision of where dispatch services is located is ultimately up to the Board of Supervisors. It is due diligence of reviewing all information at hand. The Board of Supervisors feel confident that this is in the best interest of our taxpayers and the citizens of Floyd County to proceed with the bond referendum with the full intent to locate the communications to the new law enforcement center. The Board of Supervisors will proceed with or without recommendation by the Communications Board, but we have an opportunity here to show support for the new law enforcement center and send a message to dispatch employees that you recognize a great opportunity to provide a safe and secure location with ample space to provide more tools necessary maybe to fulfill those duties, and an opportunity to change the members of the Communications Board that we had spoken about earlier with the possible changes or considerations in the 20-year review. I just... Comments?
I think I had more minutes than you did last time, so.
If there is nothing else, I would like to make a motion that the Communications Board supports the new jail law enforcement center referendum, and we, the board, recommend to the Board of Supervisors to move forward with the dispatch being included in those plans for the new law enforcement center.
Motion on the floor, is there a second?
I'll second.
Roll call vote on this one.
Point of order
Can I ask,
for
could
the
we have
discussion.
public? Yeah.
Is there anybody out in the public who would like to speak on this subject at this time? Please limit yourself to about 5 minutes if we could.
I'd like to take this
You want to
opportunity.
have microphone, I assume?
I didn't shave my head, but I dressed a lot alike. Anybody know Walter?
Yeah.
Okay. Walter and I are taxpayers. I'm gonna pay on my property taxes next year 10% of this change. My taxes are about $5,200, so overall, in the tax scheme of things, you're not talking a lot of money. But I don't see the necessity to move it the way it is right now. And you're saying that, yeah, you're gonna do this in 3 to 5 years, is it, that's when this is gonna be built? I'd like to see a little bit more on it. I haven't been to many of the meetings. I came back from Jamaica and I read the article in the paper and I was flabbergasted. Why do we need to change something that's working just fine? And the reason I say that was because I worked here for 30 years. I worked in the dispatch center. I helped with dispatching. When there was an accident out on the highway, I would come in off the street and help the dispatchers, because you know what they're doing? They're answering phone calls, they're answering radio calls, they're dispatching fire, police, ambulance, everything. They're busy. They have a lot to do. So I came in and I helped them. And they need that. They need somebody to back them up a little bit. Now, when there's an accident out there, he's gonna be sending all his guys out there, and that's what he does. And he does a good job of it. I like you. You're a good bang for my tax dollar bucks. But while they're gone, somebody's gotta come in and help them. Now, the police department could send somebody over, and yeah, they could help them if they needed to. You know, I just can't see us fixing something that's not really broke right now. I've seen the progression from when they were sitting right up here in the window and the person could walk in and shoot them right dead on the spot. We moved them back into an area which was jail cells at one time. When I first started, it was cells. We never put anybody in them. We used them for evidence storage. But in any case, we moved them back there to secure them. They're right underneath the tower and hardwired to that tower. That's why we put it there. It's close. It's there. That needs to stay there. It's there. It's it's gonna be there a long time. I can get a truck running into the side of this building, I can't touch a dispatcher. I can't get close to them. They're locked behind steel doors. I can't shoot at a dispatcher from around here, can't see them at all. I think we're in good shape. Maybe the state has a different opinion about that. I've seen it progress up to where it is today. I know that, it would be nice to have new and better things. I just haven't seen that it's going to be that much better by moving it a quarter mile away and across the river. Walter and I say, no.
Did you, just so we're recording, did you say your name?
Randy Vandybetter,
Thank you.
owner of our campground.
Just want to make sure since we're.
Okay, so anyway, that's my thoughts about it. I just don't see that the taxpayers of Floyd County, and they say we and they, it's like us.
It's us.
That's why we formed a 2080 agreement, that's why we've got everybody involved. It's not gonna change, and the article said, we're not really gonna change the way that the dispatch center is run. Well, let's just not change it. It works. It's been working. If we have problems, we fix it. And if it needs to be fixed in 4 or 5 years, okay. If we change things, okay. I just don't see that it's gonna be a big tax benefit for the taxpayers of Floyd County. That's it.
Thank you for your comments.
Yes, sir.
Hello, my name is William Kavanaugh, and I was one of the original members when this was formed, the Communications Committee. And I agree pretty much with everything Randy said, except think about what he said. I come in off the street to help the dispatcher. If they're in the courthouse, there's a jailer to come in and help them out. We cross-train these people. We get 2 people in the same building for worker safety, folks. Worker safety. We don't have to have them behind steel doors and crap. Excuse me. Let's just look at it from worker safety and let's not change anything. Let the dispatchers be city employees. Let's pay them for 1 year. Let's try it for 1 year. Let's go over there. Give it a 1-year try, because you know what? When I go in and write my check twice a year, it's not gonna change 1 penny if it's coming from the county or if it's coming from the city, you guys. Come on. Let's look at it from a different perspective is all. And thank you, folks.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a few comments. Dean Andrews, Mayor of Charles City. I know that this is a county board, and Charles City is just part of the county. But when I ran for my position as mayor, my big thing was to try to make our community and our county, our area, a positive and progressive area. And I think that, pertains to Charles City and the whole county area. You guys are a communications board. I was talking to some of the city council people, and they say, well, we need to represent the city. I said, no, you're appointed by the city, but your job on this board is to represent the communications center. It has nothing to do with what's best for the county and what's best for the city. Although I hear a lot of discussion back and forth at this table that the county people are talking about what's best for the county, the city people are talking about what's best for the city. I think you need to take those hats off and look at what's best for the communications center. I know, Linda said that you guys want to, part of this is making sure that your bond issue, or helping to make, not making sure, helping to make sure your bond issue gets passed. I think you've heard, and again, getting into the territorial thing, I think you've heard comments from both of the city council people that they're 100% behind your bond issue. They will support that bond issue no matter what happens with this scenario. I think, I guess my personal feeling is, I think, your bond issue can say, we're gonna make room for the communications center in our new building. And as time goes by, which we've said many times tonight and many times in previous meetings, this is a 2 to 5 year process. As time goes by, we will evaluate that communications center and potentially move it over to that space that we have available, because we've made that available in our bond issue. You talk about City Hall's future, and there's a cloud over that one too. We don't know what's going to happen. There's some of us that are thinking that maybe this is a more sooner project. There's some of us that are thinking this is a way down the road project. But like Linda said, it's on our list of priorities for this year. So it's something that's going to be continued to be discussed through this year. maybe not a resolution, or maybe not a decision made, but it's gonna be on the front burner, I agree. The last thing I would say is I think you need to visit with the employees. You know, and I think you guys are making the best effort you can to say, you, the county, not you, the communications board, you, the county, is making the best effort you can, saying, we're willing to hire these people, we'll bring them in at their current status, and I think that's all great. But anytime you have a person working for a company, and that company makes an announcement, future of company uncertain for next 3 years, that doesn't give the employees a warm, fuzzy feeling. And so they're gonna think, boy, what's gonna happen in the next 2 or 3 years? So I think before you say, we're gonna bring in all the employees, it's gonna be great, you need to make sure that the employees are also thinking that way too.
My name is Ben Chatfield. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the chairman of the 911 board. So I've been in all these meetings, with the exception of the last one. I apologize, I could not be here. I sat down and thought about this long and hard over the weekend, and I think everybody's on the same page. We want what's best for emergency services in the county. So when we sit back and look at 2 years, 5 years, whatever the case may be, what we do with the personnel, whether they fall under the city, they go under the county, at this point, moving forward with the jail, that is relatively a small portion of it. We're concerning ourselves with something that can be decided a year from now or 2 years from now, whether we move them. The big thing is, how do we structure the jail and how do we move forward with getting dispatch over there? Who does everybody work for? How do we set it up? So today I sat down briefly, and I know Jeff got a copy already, and I didn't bring enough for everybody, but I'll share. You got one. So it's my 2 cents worth, and I'll try to make it 5 minutes or less, sorry. All right, so throughout this discussion of moving the dispatch center, the same questions keep coming up. Listed below are areas I think need to be addressed, in my opinion, after speaking with members of the 911 board. So I personally talked to more than half the 911 board about this, and we all seem to be in the same consensus. Time frame. We all know that nothing's going to happen overnight, whether it's with the bond or construction. So I believe that it's a realistic time frame to move the new center would be 5 years. What that allows us to do, it allows the jail to be fully functional before we add any more transition into the mix. The jail will have a lot of things going on during the transition. The last thing we need to do is throw dispatch moving in the middle of it. It'll give 911 time to set aside funds to do the move, whether we buy new equipment or transition existing equipment to the new facility. It allows discussion on whether or not we want to move forward with the state 911 system or if we stay the way we are, which is going to be a huge topic in the next 3 years. So are we going to get on the state system? Our equipment here, the tower, all that, may not matter. You know, we're talking about $50,000 to move, but we may not even use any of this 5 years from now. So it's something we need to look at. Before we commit to moving $50,000 in equipment, we may not use it. Everything could be new. We talked at the last meeting. The dispatch equipment we have now has a life expectancy of 10 years. We're 2 years into that. So at 5 years from now, the equipment's going to be 70% used. So we're going to be in that window of having to replace it anyway. So what it costs, it costs. I mean, we may have to move it anyway. We may buy all new. We may say we're going over there at year 5 and everything in there is brand new because it's time to replace it anyway. So structure. How do we structure the dispatch? Does it fall under the sheriff, the EMA, or another board? So Linda brought this up. I looked at it. Option number 2 seems to fit the best for me. I believe it's in everybody's interest to have a joint board that oversees the dispatch. All emergency agencies in the county have stake in the dispatch center and should all have an equal say how it works. I believe the board should be comprised of the sheriff, the police chief of Charles City, North Springs Police Chief, the EMA, and the fire chiefs of Charles City, Caldwell, Floyd, Marble Rock, North Springs, Rudd, and Rockford. Those are the agencies in this county that are dispatched to our dispatch center. A lead dispatcher run the day-to-day operations. However, the sheriff, the Charles City Police Chief, and a designated fire chief will act as a subcommittee to oversee the dispatch if an immediate decision had to be made concerning the center. So day-to-day, John, whoever it would be, would have a lead dispatcher the same as they have a lead jailer. They would run it, and we'd have 3 people from those agencies that made the decision, and then the rest of us would meet quarterly annually, whatever we see fit. So on a day-to-day basis, you'd have 3 people, you could go too fast if something had to be done. So, any questions? Thank you.
Anyone else?
I don't have word for word. But Jane, then a motion to recommend, the communication board to recommend to move the communication over into the new dispatch.
Do you have a word for word?
I do, go ahead, would you please?
She came prepared.
All right. I made the motion that the communications board supports the new jail law enforcement center referendum, and we, the board, recommend to the board of supervisors to move forward with dispatch being included in those plans for the new law enforcement center.
Please read that one more time, first part.
Okay. I make a motion that the communications board support the new jail law enforcement center referendum, and we, the board, recommend to the board of supervisors to move forward with dispatch being included in those plans for that new law enforcement center.
I don't really have kind of a problem with the motion as it is. We're just talking about moving the dispatch center. That's what this board recommends. You're blending in there that we're supporting the jail in there as a communications board. I think we can easily remove the communications center. I think that can be a vote we can take, but I'm not sure that as a communications center, that we want to be the group that does the first line, because we don't actually know what that looks like. At least I don't have any idea what the jail referendum looks like. And I've told you personally, I will support
No, but it's
the
a
jail
very simple.
recommend, I will support personally the jail referendum. I'll knock on doors, whatever it takes to get that done, because I think that's very important. But I think the second part is all that we really need to be voting on as a group here.
So if I change the motion, I'll change it. I make a motion that the communications board recommend to the board of supervisors to move forward with dispatch being included in the plans of the new law enforcement center.
I think that's way better than we had before.
Okay?
Now, does that say technically that we are recommending that we move this, or that we include this in the plans?
Again, this will be a recommendation coming from the communications board that will go in front of the board of supervisors, basically, to say that you're in support of dispatch being included in the plan.
And I've always said I was actually in favor of dispatch being included as part of the plan, at least for building.
It's the timing that's the issue.
There's a timing, there's a question about, as long as we're here, I like having connections to the tower. I think it's one less piece of this. If City Hall were to move, we would give up that anyway. And I'll be the first one to move communication somewhere other than that at that point. Not any issues at all. But I think we've provided a service to the community that's, I think, very good. I don't know what feedback we get, but you know, when I started with the board 6 years ago, we had some technical issues. We had kind of a mix of stuff going on. And the board stepped up and corrected many of those pieces, to the point now where we aren't getting feedback that we have problems out there. And the few that we are, we're aggressively moving to correct from a physical standpoint. Things like the cable going up to the tower. You know, if that's a problem, let's fix it, let's go on. You know, we put in consoles, we put in repeaters, we've worked hard to work with Marble Rock to get stuff right. I'm not certain that you couldn't do that anywhere, but it's nice to have that at this one. It's nice to have that already connected and done right here.
And again, that's why I wanted to reiterate, we are not looking at moving the dispatch center now. You know, this was all just based on conversation with the building of the new law enforcement center. So I want to reiterate that. There was, you know, Jeff, you can speak to that too. I think there might have been some concern that we're looking at going ahead and moving it.
Right. And I think the FEH booklet there too, somebody brought that to my attention. Go back to the FEH study, you know, what they did even before Prohaska came in. And they came in and did all the studies of the dispatch center in the city and the county and everything there. And I believe they even have some pictures. I couldn't find my booklet at all. But I believe they have some pictures in there of the dispatch center and the way things sit right now. And then they have the recommendations too. And I think, you know, as the county side, you know, and as the board side, that's why we're here to try to fix those issues. I mean, if you have a new facility be possibly, I'm gonna keep throwing that in there, possibly being built, you know, is it the time to move that and get things corrected as of now? Because your building's not perfect, we know that, you know. Courthouse is not perfect, okay? We know that, there's issues there, and that's why with this referendum, we're looking at other ways that we can make the total courthouse better. So I believe there's, you know, there's some pictures in there of the dispatch center and, you know, square footage wise, go back to that. You can look at that, there's not enough space. I mean, you can attest to this, we do get feedback on the radio from a second dispatcher in there, okay? Because they're not separated far enough. So that's just the little things, and with the new facility, you know, that's why we're looking at it. So, that FEH study, I mean, they have some good things in there.
And I'll be the first to agree, there's significant issues there. I think I vocalized them very well, despite another member not necessarily agreeing with me. But there's plenty of negative to this building. But as far as, for me, well, first off, I want to thank Sheriff Brooks and Supervisor Jaden. As I mentioned in an email, this is the first time in 6 years I have felt we finally got the questions answered. And just an enormous amount of information that I felt really showed that there's a serious effort in place here. There's a couple small areas that still concern me, and it comes down to, again, with timing is, I still strongly feel we are going to be moving out of this building, whether it's 5 years, 10 years, whatever. Sooner the better for me, in my opinion. Having seen the study, having that booklet, and having walked the building, and knowing the deficiencies, is it necessary to move it now, or until we're moving and it has to be moved? At that point in time, it's an expense that has to happen then. We need to go ahead and potentially disrupt dispatch. I mean, as was vocalized, we were talking, I believe it was the mayor that said, we talked about a shift in company. He said, well, in 3 years or 5 years, the company's changing. You know, I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, that puts the dispatch in a very uncomfortable position. I mean, if it was, a lot of the manufacturers we have, if there's any type of company takeover, everyone panics and they start looking for new jobs. Like, they don't know if the job's going to be here. You know, do we create a panic when that spot in the law enforcement center, which again we'll gladly support, if that spot's going to be there? I think it makes sense that when we move, that's the time to do it, and that creates job security, no imbalance, no uncertainty. As I stated before, I feel the dispatch is a county entity, and I said that from the start, and I support that. This is a fully functioning, properly functioning, efficiently run organization, and I think that interruption may cause a drop in service. It may not, but it's enough of uncertainty for me that I would have a hard time supporting it now in this time frame. Whereas I support it when this building is not going to be City Hall anymore, and not currently dispatch center. And whether that's not what you guys want to hear, and I understand that. And I've always come from the position of, is I don't represent the city, as what the mayor said as well, I don't represent the city here. I was appointed by the city, but ultimately, what's the net gain for the county residents? I'm a county resident. Charles City is in the county. I'm a county resident. What is my overall net gain? Do we have to move it now? We can still fully support the jail, and we need to get that new jail. But does it have to go now? Does this dispatch have to go now and create that uncertainty? Dispatch, that's a hard job. We can, staffing that, you've got to get the right people to staff that. And to create that uncertainty, I think we're going to kind of create that little bit of a weakness there that is more of a concern than the intermediate lack of maybe, as much efficiency with emergency management as we could have. I know it's a lot of rambling back and forth, but I think this is a great idea, but the issue doesn't have to be forced at this point in time to still support the jail, if that meandering makes any sense.
So I'm going to restate what you said. Motion for the communication boards to recommend to the Board of Supervisors to include the dispatch center in the plans of the new law enforcement center.
No.
Yes.
I say yes.
You didn't mention the motion was approved.
Motion is approved.
I'm sorry you were in that position as the chair.
That's
It's
why.
it's uncomfortable, but
So I just think,
New business and board action as needed. New business?
that wiped me out.
it's the point on the cables in the warm weather. If anybody wonders about that. Yeah, and no wind.
Business of the chairman and board action as needed. I have nothing at this time. Adjournment.
I'd make a motion to.
Second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Dan.